really nervous. So tonight's a special night for the hashtag Wednesday Match Play because, one, I haven't seen and or talked to the guy that is the guest of honor in a long time, and it's my own fault because I actually think I'm the one that needs to return a phone call, but now we're even because I not only returned that phone call, I've got his face right in front of me, and we are chatting. And we tried this a handful of months ago, right after the book, the Wedge Book, came out. And do you like the hashtag the Wedge Book? I threw that in yesterday.
I like it, yeah.
So he wrote this book called The Wedge Book, and that's a part of my game that I'm actually pretty good with 56-degree wedge and only the 56-degree wedge, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But so Brandon Stooksbury, I actually have known him for, God, it's been forever, and it's really fun to have known and gotten the chance to become friends with a guy that I met just at a conference and then have had the chance to play some golf with, and now I've seen him move across the country and to still have and pick up the phone and have a conversation with him like we just saw each other yesterday. But when he wrote and released the Wedge Book, I got really excited because I knew how much it meant to him, and I've read it probably 3 times, 4 times now. I was just reading some of it tonight, and it's every time I pick it up, I learn something new, and it's a part of our game that we should spend more time on, and we should work on more than anything else. And Dave Pells always says that, I don't even know the numbers, that the stats that he's got behind it, but the amount of time you should spend on practicing your short game and et cetera. But enough about that. I don't want to talk about it. I want to let him talk about it. And it's been out for a few months now, but I'm just really excited to have Brandon with us from the Wedge Book. Brandon, welcome to the Wednesday Match Play, buddy.
Ricky, thanks so much, man. It's really great to be with you, buddy. It's been too long.
So real quick, tell me about the book. Tell me where it came from, where the idea started, and just kind of talk me through the idea that you woke up one day and said, you know what, I'm going to write a book.
Yeah, it's interesting. The story is fairly unique. I mean, as a guy that teaches, I'm known as a golf instructor, but what I really do is I teach improvement in golf. And while that may sound like it should be the case, that's not always the case. I don't just teach the golf swing, or I don't just teach the short game. I teach people how to get better. And what I found is that the more I taught short game, the more they got better. So I wanted to teach more short game. And so I started doing research and I started doing study to try to get better at teaching short game. And the more I looked, the more I realized 2 really important things. Number one, there wasn't a whole lot out there specific to short game. I mean, Pells has written a couple of good books, and Seekman and a couple other guys, but I mean, there really isn't a lot out there, especially when you compare it to full swing. Number 2, a lot of the information that floats around in our business, being golf instruction in short game, is not really very good. And I don't say that to be derogatory to anybody, but there are a lot of myths and old wives' tales, and and things that just get passed down, such as a chip shot is a putt with a lofted club. Oh my God, that couldn't be farther from the truth, right? And things of that nature. And so I just got tired of hearing it or not hearing it, and I said, you know what, I'm going to write a book. And so that's kind of how it came about. I probably should have taken your advice years ago and started a YouTube channel and made videos, but a book seemed to make more sense to me, and the Wedge Book was born. So that's the story.
That is awesome, and it's cool to have seen, not only have seen the book come together and to have been able to take some of the things that you've said in the book. I mean, yeah, you're right. Like, I mean, I'm not going to hit a chip shot the way I hit a putt. Like, that's completely different.
Right, totally different.
Yeah, you only got a half an hour, and I've got when I say laundry list, I have a ton of questions tonight. So as always, I always enjoy hearing stories, and there are a couple of questions that I expect to hear some stories from. But the first one, I'm going to have you yell at me a little bit, because when I have a shot that's 85 yards or less, even if it's 5 feet from the green, I pull out my 56 degree. And I know that's not always the case. I know there are cases where I need to hit a bump and run, where I may hit a 7-iron or a hybrid or 60 degree or whatever, but I hit the 56. So take a couple of minutes and yell at me at why I shouldn't be doing that, and try to convince me, and do convince me, to start using more clubs in my bag 85 yards and in.
Yeah, it seems we've had this conversation before at some point, maybe even live with a 56-degree wedge actually in your hand. But here's the way. Let me give you an example. Okay, let's say you're going to go out and you're a betting man. All right, and there are 2 piles of 100 golf balls, and you've got 2 golfers. Okay, and I tell you, golfer A has 1 shot and 1 way and 1 tool to play all 100 shots, and I'm going to scatter these 100 shots all over the golf. They're all over the green, right? Golfer B has 4 or 5 tools and 10 or 12 options to play these 100 shots. Who you putting your money on?
Yeah, golfer B.
The analogy I'm making, right, is that having more than one golf club does 2 things. Number one, it allows you the variability to play lots of different types of shots depending on the situation you might need. Number one. Number two, it allows you to hit different kinds of shots while making minimal changes to the way you move, which is really important, because if you have a 56, then that thing's moving all over your stance and you're flipping it and you're leading the handle and you're doing all kinds of crazy things to try to create the different trajectories. When I could give you, hypothetically, I could give you a 50, a 56, and a 60 degree, and the ball could stay in the same position in your stance, and you can make the same exact movement and create 3 completely different golf shots. Multiply that times all the different ball positions you already use, and now you have 9, 10, 12, 15 golf shots. And so it provides you with more options to cover more situations. And so, as I did several years ago in the freezing cold in Las Vegas on a golf course, I would highly recommend that you at least embrace the idea of adding a wedge or 2 to the arsenal and see how you do.
I'm still mad about that, and I think about that round every time I'm cold and I'm on a golf course, and I'm like, I am in the desert and it is freezing, and I'm like, we got through 6 holes, and I'm like, we're done. We're going to the bar. I can't do this anymore.
You're right. It was 6 holes, and it was freezing that day. That's pretty rare. You know, it gets a little colder in Las Vegas than most people think, but that particular day was really cold. That was too bad, but I had fun for the 6 holes.
Yeah, no kidding. We need to do that again and actually get a full 18 in, so I can hit maybe I should just hit more greens and not have to worry about even needing the wedges. I just hit fairways and greens and just forget about the wedges. I know that's not the case.
Right.
So Eat Sleep Golf is the sponsor of the hashtag Wednesday Match Play, and they have a whole bunch of good questions. And one of them was not only what prompted the Wedge Book, but can we expect a sequel like the driving book or the putting book? Any plans on expanding the line of the book series?
Yeah, you know, there's 2 things that are on my mind. I don't think right now I'm prepared to go to another golf club, but 2 ideas I'm kicking around. If I get any negative feedback at all on the book, it's that it doesn't speak enough to the better player. Now, that frustrates me that I get negative feedback because it was never written for the better player, right? But I have some ideas of perhaps doing a video series that might go along with the book that gets a little deeper into some of the more specialty shots, the little 2-hop stopper and the lob shot and some specialty bunker shots. And I also have an idea of maybe creating some sort of practice manual that would show you different games you play or different ways you practice specific to wedges, so that you have an idea of what to do when you go out to the golf course, instead of just going out and spending 8.5 minutes of your 2 hours while you're out there hitting some chip shots and then you go home. And so those are really the 2 directions I'm thinking. And I would suspect that sometime in the next year, or this year, I should say, that I hope to have at least one of those moving forward. I don't know which yet. That's kind of where I'm at now.
Well, talking about the practice, I don't practice, but in the book you talk about a game called Birdie, and I absolutely love that concept. And thinking about when I grab my buddies and we're just waiting for our round, or if we are practicing or just hanging out having a good time, like, tell us what that game is and talk about where you came up with that idea for that game. I mean, what a cool concept.
Well, I mean, I grew up as I'm sure most of us did. I grew up playing a lot of different sports, and I was fortunate enough. My parents, put a basketball goal out in my driveway when I was a kid. And one of the most popular games you play with a basketball goal is horse, right? And so you and I go out, and I try to make a shot. And if I make it, then you've got to make it. And if you don't make it, you get a letter, right? And the first one that spells horse loses. Well, it's the same exact concept in golf. It's just birdie or eagle, or call it whatever you want, right? Bogey or whatever, but we go out together, and you can play lots of different variations. You can just play closest to the pin, right? So I pick a shot, I hit it. If you get closer, I get a letter. If I get closer, you get a letter. You could also make it an up and down game, right? To where, if I get closer and then knock it in, I get a letter, or you get a letter, and so forth and so on. And so there's lots of different variations, you can add to it. But I play the game with the kids all the time, and sometimes we have a lot of fun replacing letters with punishments, right? Whether that be push-ups or wind sprints or, or whatever. Fortunately, the wedge game is the best part of my game, and so I usually get to avoid the punishments when I'm playing them, but they're getting better and better. So it's a great game. What I like about it is it's real, right? Especially if you put some pressure there, whether you've got a Coke on the line or $20 or somebody's paying for dinner, or whatever. It's random, which is what you have on the golf course, and then it's real because there's some pressure involved. It's a fantastic game. Of all that I play, it's my favorite, and that's how it ended up in the book.
Well, I'm gonna start playing that. My buddy Matt and I play a lot of golf together, so I'm gonna introduce that to him and make sure that we play that going forward. So let's say I hit a chip shot from 15 feet and it hits, it checks, and stops. How much of that is the wedge, and how much of that is the golf ball, or how much of that is the swing that I put on that golf ball?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a little bit of all three. By far. Well, I won't even say that. Golf ball is really important. I tell people all the time, how do you do that? My answer is play a $5 golf ball, right? If you're not playing a $5 golf ball, it's not going to check. It's just not going to do it. I don't care what $5 I'm not going to press anybody, although I should. Yeah, I should throw Titleist, my sponsor, out there. But it doesn't really matter. You have to play a premium golf ball, number one, right? Number two, you cannot have a wedge that either has A, dirty grooves, and I mean any dirt whatsoever. They have to be perfectly clean. And B, it has to be a reasonably fresh wedge, right? Now, that's always a sliding, moving scale, because how much do you practice? What kind of dirt do you practice out of? As much as I practice, I could have a set of wedges for about 4.5 years and they'd be fine, right? But most people can't do that. If you practice at all, you really need to replace your wedges once a year. I mean, the equipment manufacturers love it when I say that, but I'm not really trying to sell wedges. I'm just trying to make sure your grooves are fresh. And then third and final, obviously, without good technique, that's never going to happen anyway. And so lots of people misunderstand spin and what creates spin. And I get a little bit of that into my book. I don't say it specifically that way, but there's this myth out there that hitting down on the golf ball sharply with a lot of loft produces spin, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. It's been disproven. It doesn't work in practice. It doesn't work in a lab. It doesn't work anywhere. But there's a lot of that out there, and so it's a little bit of all three. I wish it were just as easy as buying, a $10 golf ball and getting immediate spin, but unfortunately, it's a little more complicated than that.
So Eat Sleep Golf has a really good question, and I play on pretty much perfect conditions all year round. But they said, under regular conditions, I'm not bad with my wedges, but if the ground is soggy or extra hard, I tend to have a lot of chunks and or mishits. Any advice is if I should be playing shots differently under these types of conditions?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would, anytime someone has trouble with contact, you have to look at how you get the golf club to the bottom of the arc. Now, wedges are a little different than from a 9-iron or an 8-iron or a mid-iron, where we really want to get the golf ball on a descending blow. We hit ground first and then peel a divot well in front. By well, I mean 2 or 3 inches in front of where the golf ball sits. Wedges aren't used that way, especially not inside 40 yards. Or 35 to 40 yards. It almost is to the point with a wedge where the bounce hits the ground about the same time the golf club hits the ball. And so if the bottom of the arc is not really pretty well put together there, then you're going to have some trouble. And so I wouldn't say you should play them differently, but you might need a little more skill when the ground is less forgiving, if that makes sense. And tight lies are really tough because you have to be so perfect. Club can bounce off the hard ground and into the golf ball. Wet lies are tough because if you hit it just a little fat at all, you're going to peel a big divot and the dirt might go farther than the golf ball. And so I wouldn't say you play those shots differently. For the love of God, don't put them back in your stance, right, and try to hit ball first. Please don't do that. I do talk about that in my book, but I don't think you have to play them different, but they are more challenging, and so it may require a little higher skill level.
So I have a pitching wedge, a gap wedge, a 56, and a almost brand new 60-degree wedge in my bag. How many wedges should I have in my bag, and what wedges should they be?
Yeah, so that's a really good question I get a lot. And so being a short game guy, being a guy that wrote a book, right, and teaches, spends most of his time teaching short game, I am a big believer in having as many wedges as you can. Now, I don't mean you got to have 8 of them, but I don't think it's out of the ordinary to carry 4 wedges, including your pitching wedge. And so that would essentially be the lineup that you just named. It would be a pitching wedge, some sort of gap wedge around the 50 to 52, some sort of sand wedge around 55 to 60, and a lob wedge. Now, I usually prefer that you set the bottom end at 60. I don't like the 58 folks. And the reason I don't is because I think you rob yourself of much needed loft when you go to just a 58. And I think the 62-degree wedges are for folks that don't know how to use the 60-degree wedge. I don't have a nice way to say that, so I'm just going to put it out there. So what I always get anytime I say this is, well, but now I have to get rid of something at the top end of my set. Really? How often do you hit 3 hybrid, and how well do you really hit it? Right? I mean, that's usually my question when it comes to that. And so it's much easier to spread out a gap at the top end of your set than it is to make up for one at the bottom end when you consider 70% of the shots you're going to hit are going to be less than a full swing in any round of golf. And so the way I did it, I'll give you a good example, is I used to carry driver, 3-wood, 5-wood, 3-iron, right? And so when I added, now this was many, many years ago when I was in high school, when I added a 60-degree wedge to add the 4th wedge, I went driver, 4-wood, 3 hybrid, 4-iron. And so I essentially made my gaps at the top end larger so that I can accommodate another golf club. I mean, I hit my 3 hybrid probably 225 in the air. And I hit a 4-iron about 205 or 210 if it struck solidly, which isn't very likely anymore, but that's a whole other conversation for another day. And so you can see there that gap is at least 15 yards, if not 20, because quite frankly, it's much easier for me to hit the 3 hybrid easy, or try to hit the 3-iron or the 4-iron hard, because I don't really expect to hit a good shot with that golf club anyway. I mean, the green or the green and regulation percentage from 2 to 225 yards on the tour is something like less than 30%. That's a tour player, right? Those are the best in the world. So what am I going to hit it? 15% of the time, maybe. And so I would much rather have something on the bottom end of the set to give me another option to my analogy earlier than I would have something at the top end that I'm going to use to punch out from under the trees.
So to your comments about the 3 hybrid, I probably hit mine about 20 times a round. I used to not hit my 3-wood ever, and then Dan Attaway and I spent about 3 hours on a range about a month and a half ago, and now I hit it, and I hit it as far as I hit my driver. So that's back in play, but I do hit the 3 hybrid quite a bit. So
sounds to me like you might need a new driver, right?
Speaking of that, Dan, I think there is one of those in the mail. So Matthew Rudy wrote the foreword to the Wedge Book. How do you know him, and how and or why did you pick him to write the foreword for this?
Yeah, Matt actually has become a good friend. I didn't know him at all when I started this project, and Matt kind of made a post. As I'm sure you do, we all belong to 4 or 5 different forums, on the different social media pages, and Matt had made a post about doing some ghostwriting, I guess is what, for lack of better words, is what it's called, and it intrigued me a little bit because I was kind of had this thing in my mind anyway that I might want to try to write a book. And I knew if I tried to write a book on my own, it would never be written. I'd still be in chapter 2 right now. It never would have happened. So I called him, and we started this conversation, and some things that he said intrigued me. And the more research I did on Matt, the more I realized he had done, and the more appealing it became to me to work with him. And so we wrote the book together. Matt was the co-author, if you will, on the book. And when it actually had one of my students in Las Vegas chosen to write the foreword, and Matt eventually came to me and he said, I think I'd really like to write it. He said, I think I could do a really good job, and it might be a little more meaningful, for the population of golfers for it to come from me. And I had no problem with that at all. Obviously his resume and credentials speak for themselves. And so it turned out great. As soon as he sent it to me, I said, this is a winner. Let's run with it.
Well, that's really cool, and he did do a great job with that. I didn't realize he had that much to do with the actual writing of the book, so that's good to know. I'll make sure he gets a copy of the hangout tonight after it's over, because he was mentioned, and that's really cool. So I don't know anything about Idle Hour. Tell me, what's it like? What's the golf course like? The clubhouse, your teaching studio? Like, walk me through what it's like to spend a day at your club.
Yeah, and so Idle Hour is, for those of you who do know me, Idle Hour is much more my speed. You know, I was kind of an implant in Las Vegas, and I think I felt like a duck out of water from the day I joined that city. And so I had a ton of fun, but it's much more my speed back in the South. And so Idle Hour is a traditional, typical Old South club. We have a golf course that's 104 years old. It's an A.W. Tillinghast design. It's built on about 65 acres, right, which is very, very small. It's a par 70 that tips out at about 6,750 yards. What's unique about Idle Hour is we have bent grass greens. An hour south of Atlanta, we still have bent grass, which is pretty rare. We're actually the furthest south course in the state of Georgia to still have bent grass. And so they are about as big as your living room. They are all elevated and full of undulation, right? Typical. And we're wall-to-wall Bermuda grass. And so, you know, it's a typical old school club. We've got about 1,150 members. So it's a busy place.
No kidding. I didn't realize it was that big.
Yeah, it's a big club. My teaching building's about 2,700 square feet with 3 indoor-outdoor bays, which is a big selling point for me when I came to Idle Hour, or came to do my interview at Idle Hour. And then I have a 6-hole par 3 course that's attached to the range. It's a regulation par 3. We have the same greens and bunkers and tees and everything that we have on the golf course. And so I cannot say enough good about the tradition and the history and the pace and everything that surrounds Idle Hour. It really, I didn't realize how much I had missed the private club environment until I got back into it. And Ricky, I couldn't be happier.
That's awesome. Does the short course have a name that's separate? Because that seems to be like, I don't want to say the word trend, because it's not a trend and it should be a trend. That seems to be a new thing where clubs are starting to add the short courses. And I just saw that Bandon Dunes is going to be adding one. Auction Southern Dunes they have hashtag mini dunes. I mean, you've got the course at Augusta. So does it have its own name?
Well, you know, in private clubs, they name everything after old members. That's just what they do, right? And so our golf course is called the Duck Swan course. And so Duck Swan was a member at our club that was a really prominent member and prominent amateur player in the Georgia golf arena. And so it's the Duck Swan course. That's what we call it.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so it's at its longest holes about 145 yards, and the shortest hole is about 30 yards.
Oh, that 30 yards. That's cool. That's probably the hardest hole on the course.
We have there are 6 holes and 5 greens. We have one double green kind of in the middle, and the whole par 3 course is kind of built in an amphitheater. So you kind of play up around the sides of the amphitheater and then down across the middle and back up the hill, and it's really cool. It's a really neat.
That is cool. So my copy of the Wedge Book is signed. How many copies of this have you signed?
Not as many as you would think. I would say less than 25.
No kidding. That's cool.
Yeah.
Now I have to know, the very first one that you got, did you save it? Did you frame it? Did you put it somewhere safe? Does it? Because I'm a collector, I guess, and some might call me a hoarder, but either or. Speaking of being a hoarder, completely unrelated to this, I found an issue of Golf Digest that is from 2001 that has Tim Mahoney, who is Troon's director of instruction, on the cover, and I'm like, yep, because I save things. So did you save the very first copy?
You know, the first copy I ever got of the book was an actual book that you just showed, proof, but it was before we had made our final edit. And so when Matt and I finished the book, Matt said, "Look, I want you to order a copy, and I want you to just beat it up. I want you to, to let, you read it, let your wife read it, let your dad read it, let your, whoever read it, and just make marks all over it." And so that's really the first copy I had, and it's actually sitting on my desk at work right now with pencil marks, and highlighter and everything all in it. and I ordered the first box of books I ordered 100 books. And so I use Amazon on demand, or you print on demand. And so you can get as few or as many as you want. So I ordered 100 books, and I did not save the first real book after it was finished. But I do still have the copy. And it's, the pages are all ratted, and torn, and it's got all marks in it, but it's still on my desk.
That might be as cool as the first one. So I think that story alone makes that one worth just as much, if not more. So where can people get the book? I mean, you said Amazon. So like somebody that's sitting out there watching right now, where are they going to go to get it?
Yeah. So if you just go to my website, there's a few different ways to get there. You can just Stooksbury Golf will get you there. BrandonStooksbury.com. One URL I'm particularly happy of that I don't use enough is bsgolf.com. My wife doesn't quite find the same humor in that I do. But anyway, those will.
I find it. Yeah, it's there.
I figured you would. And so you can't miss it. Click on the big picture of the Wedge Book. And there are 2 options to buy it. You can 3 actually. You can get it in a hard. Well, I say hardcover, in soft cover like you have there from Amazon, in print. It's about 102 pages. You can get it in the digital form through Kindle. Or you can get a signed copy. Now, make no mistake, it's not the same signed copy you have. It will simply have my name in it. It won't have the personal note in it, but you can get that through the website as well. Both Amazon links will send you to Amazon, and then the other is a PayPal direct to me. But either 3 of those options you prefer, you can get right there.
That's really cool. Well, I do feel honored to have received a copy that is not only signed, but it is personalized directly to me. So now the book has a ton of pictures, and the pictures are really well done. So 1, where were those pictures taken? 2, who took those pictures? And 3, do you have a collection of 1,000 of these pictures that weren't used in the book?
You'll love this story. My wife took those pictures. Yeah, she is. She has this really nice camera that she never uses. I don't know why she bought it, but anyway, we were trying to go back and forth. When I say we, Matt and I were trying to kick around lots of ideas. And when I started this thing, it was all, I want to do it in color, and I want it to be all this and glossy. And the more I realized how much that cost, the less I liked that idea. And so we kind of got onto this idea where we were going to do what he called a line drawing. And it's kind of think about a charcoal sketch of a picture. That's kind of what it would look like. Because we felt like the quality of the image that way wouldn't have to be so high, and I could maybe avoid having to have a professional photographer come in. And so we kind of decided on that. And I said, send me an example of a line drawing. And so I just sent him a random picture that I had taken with my iPhone and sent it to him. And he sent me back the line drawing, and I just didn't like it. It looked too old fashioned, and especially after I got the cover of the book and it had this really kind of cool modern look to it. I just didn't think it fit. And I said, look, I'd like to give this a shot. Let me see if I can get some pictures taken. We'll turn them into black and white. And so that's what we did. And so I have to give my wife all her credit. She stood out in the hot sun and got, was sweaty and got a sunburn, taking all those pictures. It took us about 3 or 3.5 hours to take it. Interesting tidbit. At one of the pictures in the book that shows me kind of in the finish, if you look in my back right pocket, you'll see a white piece of paper folded up. And that's the shot list that I had in my back pocket. I don't know what page it's on, but it's in there somewhere.
81.
Yeah, it's sticking out of my pocket. That was a little bit of an oopsie there, but anyway, yeah. And so maybe I should sign that picture, right? Anyway, and so that's what Matt did. Matt does that for Golf Digest. He that's part of his job is he will essentially take an article and he will stage the images that will best go along with that article. So he sent me a shot list that was about 14 pages long of, on page 20, page 22, paragraph 4, take this image from the forearms up or from the legs down, or whatever. And so that's what we did. And I sent them all to him. I sent him close to 100 images. And you see what got put in the book. And so, yeah, there are a collection of them that didn't get used. But when he sent me the images that were kind of sized appropriately and fit in the book, and man, it was just awesome. I feel like it really turned out well. I tried my best to dress in some clothing that I wouldn't be shaking my head at in 15 years. When I look back at the book, and I think I think it turned out really well. I honestly, Ricky, I couldn't be happier with it. If I had it to do over again, I might add another chapter. I might take it one step farther into what I call the pitch shot. And it might get to 125 pages, but I couldn't be happier with it. The cover came out awesome. The pictures
looks
came out
really
awesome.
cool.
The way Matt, helped me to write the book came out awesome. I couldn't be happier with it.
Now, the one thing that you didn't do in those photos, you didn't have your top button buttoned. I'm a member of the Golf Shirts Top Button Club, and it's a small membership.
Yeah, you can count me out. Look, in case you've forgotten, I'm not the smallest in stature, and something about the song, in some movie, fat guy in a little shirt, something comes to mind.
That guy in a little coat, yeah.
A little coat, thank you. When I think about buttoning my top button, no way I could pull that off. So, if you're in that club, God bless you. But
all right, so we are almost out of time, but I got one more good one from Eat Sleep Golf, and then we got what's called the lightning round. It's just 9 fun, random golf-specific questions, more about you than the book. But Eat Sleep Golf said, how should my practice time be broken down? What percentage should be focused on driving, chipping, and putting? So that's kind of the full gamut. But do you have a strategy that you teach your students on how they should practice what clubs?
Well, in a perfect world, it's based on what you're good at and what you're not good at, right? And so left to your own devices, humans will never work on their weaknesses. They will always work on their strengths, because it's no fun to work on what you're not good at. And it's a lot more fun to work at what you are good at. And so traditionally, I like to base that on the statistics of how the player's playing and what they're weakest at, and we spend the most time there. But in the absence of those statistics, here's what I would tell you. Simple statistics tell you that out of 100% of your shots, about 30% will come from a full swing, 40% will come, 35 to 40% will come from short game, meaning less than a full swing, and another 35 to 40% will come from putting. And so I think that's a real good place to start in the absence of having enough statistics to tell you what you're worst at. For example, if you are a reasonably good short game player, a reasonably good putter, and a horrific driver of the golf ball, or you don't hit very many greens in regulation, then obviously it would make more sense to spend your time there. But without that information, I would tell you you need to be spending more time on your short game, because I've never met anybody that practices your short game enough. And so I think that's a good percentage. If you could just think a third, and a third, full swing, wedge swing, or short game, anything less than a full swing, putting, I think that'd be a real good place to start.
Awesome. Okay, so the lightning round, and a couple of these are, good timing because it is Masters Week. So let's get started with the lightning round. First off, I can't thank you enough for coming out and doing this. I didn't even think to tell you how fast this 30 minutes would go, but we're at like 35 minutes already, and I could stay. I could have had 20 more questions, and we could have talked all night. But it's 3 hours ahead where you are, so I know you need to get to sleep, because the Masters does officially start at 5:20 a.m. here. So make sure that for the poll we're doing at work, I have my picks in by 5:20 a.m. But have you ever been to the Masters?
I have, actually. I've been a few times. I was fortunate enough to win some lottery tickets in the lottery that they do 4 or 5 years ago. I get in free on my PGA credentials, but nobody else ever gets in for free. And so I don't want to go by myself. And so I was fortunate enough to hit in the lottery, and I took my dad with me for my first trip to Augusta. I was back in Vegas, so that's been at least 3 years ago or 4 years ago, if not 5. And that was a pretty special trip for me, as you can imagine. And then I've been back once after that. And then actually I just got back on Monday for my third trip. And so it's a little easier for me to get there. I had my best friend in the world flew up from New Orleans. And interestingly enough, I'll give you a little tidbit. He paid $125 after taxes round trip for a flight from New Orleans to Atlanta and Atlanta back, and paid $450 for a Monday practice round ticket to Augusta. He had never been, and it was really cool to take him. And he was my first client as a professional. He was my first student. and it was a really special time for him to get to enjoy it and for me to get to see it again. More people on Monday than I'd ever seen there in the past. I don't know why, or if they are letting more people in now or what, but we had a conversation off the record about golf, growing or not growing, and I tell you, there's no shortage of fans at the Masters, that's for sure.
So you pay $400 to get in, and then you pay $1.50 for a sandwich and $3 for a beer. I mean, they got
awesome. Awesome. We went and had enough food to literally feed a family, and it was like $14. It was awesome.
So we do, real quick, we do on Friday mornings, we do in the office, we do breakfast, and every month it's a different department. Well, this month and next month it's sales and marketing. Well, I have been deemed I found out today, hey, you have breakfast duty on Saturday, so don't tell anybody, and I hope nobody from the team is watching right now, but I'm going to do, and it's only because Spencer Cody, general manager at Sawylo Golf Club, said that he only eats the egg salad sandwiches for breakfast. I'm going to do legit white bread egg salad sandwiches, cups of ice water and iced tea, and I have a $30 budget to feed 36 people. So you get egg salad sandwiches, but I'm going to have the Masters playing on an iPad. It's going to be kind of a Masters themed.
That'll be good.
Yeah.
Maybe get a little tub of pimento cheese and a knife if they want to, spread the pimento cheese on top. I don't know if that sounds good to me, but egg salad sandwiches, boy, they served a bunch of them.
Oh, that's awesome. So who do you think wins this year?
Wow, that's a tough one. I tell you what, I think it would be really hard to bet against a couple of people. I think Jason Day would be really hard to bet against. He's playing too good. Bubba Watson be hard to, really hard to play against. But I tell you, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I think Mickelson wins again. I think the golf course sets up really well for him. And I think he's still young enough and got enough fire in him to maybe win one more. So that's my dark horse pick. I think it's going to be a good year for him. Justin Rose is another good pick. There's so many guys that are playing really solid. Charlie Hoffman always plays great. That's an old Vegas boy, but he can't ever seem to close the deal. But I like Mickelson at least to win. So we'll see.
You heard it here first. What is your favorite hole at Idle Hour?
17. It is the most disastrous, vomit-inducing hole you could ever imagine. It's a very long par 4. It plays almost 480 from the back tees. It's up and over the driveway on the way in, and then down a hill and up. It's just disgusting. It's a very hard par 4. Most people hate it. Most board members want to blow the green up and rebuild it. I think it's unfair, but it's a great hole. It's a lot of fun to play, and if you make a 5, you've made a pretty good 5. So,
have you ever had an ace?
No.
Okay.
No, I've charted a few times on par 4s for 2, and I've made an eagle from the fairway on a par 5 for 3, but never an ace.
Wow, that's crazy. What golf ball are you currently playing?
At it, for that matter. Not even close. Anyway, sorry, what?
What golf ball are you playing? And I have a feeling you're going to say it.
Oh, I'm a proud Pro V1X, fan. Go Titleist, right? But anyway, yeah, I play the Pro V1X.
So you're on Twitter, and you're pretty good at Twitter. Actually, you're up there in the 1% of Twitter users now.
Hang on, let me just pause you right there. But you have no idea how much that means to me coming from you. And I have no problem admitting that any skill whatsoever I might have in the Twitter sphere came directly from this man right here. You taught me everything I know, and that means a lot. I don't use it enough, but I'm glad to hear you say that.
Well, and I say that because of the fact that I can tweet and tag you, and it's not a matter of minutes, hours. It's a matter of seconds, and you're responding, and you're active, you're retweeting, you're commenting, and that shows that this is always in your hands. And from a digital marketing perspective, that's not something you can teach. That's something that you have to get. You get it. And if I have anything to do with that, that makes me happy. And I'm glad to have heard you say that. And I love the fact that I can tweet something and tag you, and I don't even have to put my phone down before you're engaging with that content.
Well, so listen, I'm scared of the dirty private message that I'm going to get from you if I don't,
Excuse me, it's been 45 seconds.
Where the heck are you, man? So you taught me well, my friend. You taught me well.
Well, so at 140 characters or less, why should I buy this?
Wow, because your short game needs to be better. How about
Ooh, that is a good
Hashtag
one.
the Wedge
Hashtag the Wedge Book. I love it. So what is the one course you haven't played that would sit atop your bucket list?
Oh, wow.
And Augusta is not fair, and for as all I know, you've played the golf course.
And I'm fairly confident that if I stick around Georgia, being so close to it, eventually I'll get my day at Augusta National. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Shinnecock would be up there for me. I think that would be a really great golf course to play. And I would say that might be at the top for me. I'd really like to get on Shinnecock and play. There's a lot of golf courses I want to play, and I have played a lot. I've been lucky in my career, but I hadn't got on that one, and I think that would be at the top.
So when I ask this next question, you know me, and you've known me for a long time, and you know that he's sitting right above me, so be very careful how you answer this. And if you start laughing, I'm going to hang up right now. And I'm going to continue asking this question until the day he retires. But do you think Tiger breaks Jack's record? Why or why not?
No, no, Ricky, no.
I got a little bit of hope still in there.
Listen, I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think he wins another major or two. I really do. I think his body's going to keep him from really doing what he wants. You know, I mean, and I wouldn't have said that 5 years ago. I really didn't think. I've never felt like he was going to break the record. And 5 years ago, it wasn't because of his body. It was because you hated it when I said that, and so I stuck to it.
I still do.
I tell you, man, his body's pretty broken. I mean, it really is, and I worry that Tiger's style of play, meaning it's always been aggressive. He's always hit it hard. He's always. I worry that he would have to back so much off that to have another 3, 4, 5 years to do it. I just don't think he'll ever get there. And that's probably the most sincere I've ever been in answering that question from you. Normally, I'm trying to poke the bear. But I don't think he makes it. Although I do think he wins again. I think if he catches the right conditions at Augusta, or I think if he catches the right conditions at a British Open, yeah, I think he's still got the game, and he says he's still got the desire, and so it would sure be great for the game if he would. No question.
I'm going to allow that answer because it wasn't just a no next. And you didn't poke the bear as much as I thought you might, so I appreciate that. And your final question of your hashtag Wednesday match play is, what's next for Brandon?
You know, I got to be honest with you. I can't believe I'm saying this. I hope I sit right here. I really do. I hope I retire here. If things go the way I'm hoping they will in the next 4 to 5 years, you know, I'm looking forward to being right here. I have some goals and aspirations within the PGA of America that I want to fulfill. I took a big step toward that last month, you know, in the election as secretary of the Georgia section. I've got a few things I'd still like to do within my profession. You know, I've still got a few goals with some recognition and traveling some places, and I'd love to get out and do some seminars, you know, with my book and travel and see some things. But I tell you, things are going pretty well for me right now. So
awesome.
What's next, hopefully, is selling a lot of books. You know,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Brandon, it's always so good to hear from you and to talk with you. And we've got almost an hour, and I don't even care because I could sit here and talk for an hour more. But it's been a pleasure getting to get caught up with you and to learn more about the Wedge Book. This book has and will continue to help me get better with my short game. Thank you for coming on the show. You're always welcome to come back anytime you ever want to come back and talk about anything new, anything PGA related. Next time, maybe it could be Brandon Stooksbury from the PGA of America. I mean, I know you guys are celebrating your centennial this year, so you got a lot of stuff to talk about there. But as always, I have to end the hashtag Wednesday Match Play with, you know, the sponsor in mind. So remember to eat, sleep, golf.